Hey everyone, Lisa Salvatore here with a video on this current Mercury retrograde cycle. This Mercury retrograde begins September 26th or 27th, depending on your time zone, and will take us through October the 17th. Now, we know there's also a pre-shadow phase that's 2 weeks before we actually go into the full-on retrograde, and then a 2 weeks post-shadow phase, which is 2 weeks outside of when Mercury technically stations direct. So all in all, we are dealing with quite a few weeks of this Mercury retrograde in Libra. We're dealing with quite a bit of Libran energy as Mercury has been in Libra since August the 29th and will remain there until November 5th. Very long time for Mercury, our speedy planet that is closest to the sun, to remain in one sign, and that is due to this retrograde cycle. I wanted to dive into this particular cycle and how it pertains to you by your rising sign, because this one's going to feel more personal and there's going to be a lot to contend with because we are dealing with themes under the Pluto energy, under a Mercury-Pluto square. So all in all, this particular retrograde, this Mercury retrograde, has the potential to truly have you excavate a deep part of your soul, a deep part of your life, and it's going to be in a specific area based upon your own personal chart. I've time-stamped the signs below, so if you don't want to listen to the whole video about Mercury and you just want to go straight to your sign, please do so by using the timestamps below. Also, please use your rising sign if you know it. If you don't know it, you can go to astro.com and create a free account. Accurate birth time is extremely important for the most accurate horoscope. Without getting into this whole long-winded astrological explanation about why I recommend you use your rising sign. So many of you may know this, many of you might not, but the rising sign in your chart is just as indicative of who you truly are at the soul level as much as your sun sign, if not arguably more so at times, and the moon, but we're not going to focus on that today. So what happens is at the moment of your birth, the sun is in your sign. So let's say your August 18th makes you a Leo sun. But every zodiac sign has its own constellation. And at the moment of your birth, there's going to be a sign, a zodiac sign, that's a constellation that's rising on the eastern side of the horizon. And that changes every 2 hours. So that means that the accurate birth time is extremely important because a Leo sun who is a Scorpio rising is going to be very, very different than a Leo sun Aquarius rising. Huge difference in personality. And beyond that, the rising sign actually sets the house system for the whole chart. And the houses in the birth chart, which there are 12 of, if you're not familiar, the houses in the birth chart are areas of life in which the energy and the planets are funneled into and concentrated into. Not every house has planets, but that doesn't mean that house doesn't have energy. It just means that there just are no planets taking occupancy in that house in this lifetime. So again, without an accurate birth time, you are not going to have an accurate house system. So anyway, that's the very short version, short answer as to why I recommend you use your rising sign for this video for the most accuracy. If you don't know it or can't obtain it for whatever the reason, then just go by your sun sign. You'll feel if it resonates with you. And if it doesn't, just, take it with a grain of salt, like I always say. Mercury retrograde in and of itself, it's not that big of a deal when you think about it because it happens 3 to 4 times per year. And we know that it's coming, which is one of the beautiful things about astrology is that we are aware of these transits long before they take place. And we have ample time to prepare or to kind of understand more about what could potentially arise under the energy. Now, Mercury retrograde, as we all know, Mercury is the planet that rules over communication and it rules over travel and technology. And also it provides a lot of delays and frustrations most times. We know this. So that means when we're getting ready for a Mercury retrograde, that's the time you want to back up your files. You want to make sure things are working appropriately just in case something happens. Like last week, my computer completely shut down and I lost a lot of things that I was working on and I was really, really pissed, but to be honest, but whatever. That's a whole nother story for me to deal with, but that's my own fault. I normally do have my stuff backed up, but I didn't, and it was a big deal. Anyway, we know this about Mercury retrograde. We know it's coming, so we can prepare. Some Mercury retrogrades are much more disruptive than others, collectively, and then also personally, depending on our own personal charts. This Mercury retrograde, we are dealing with Pluto. Now, we know Pluto is the lord of the underworld. He brings things up from the trenches. He brings things up from the depth of our soul. I think of Pluto as the boulder in your backyard. You move into this new house and there's this huge rock in your yard and it's too heavy, so you don't move it. And then a whole entire year goes by, you still don't do it. The excavator comes, or the contractor, whomever, and he lifts that rock for you. And under that rock, there is just disgusting, yucky worms and bugs and all things that are not very pleasurable to look at or to deal with, but you have to for the new earth, for the new soil to grow. Really weird analogy that I just popped off with, but anyway, that's what Pluto does. That's what Pluto is like. It shows us what isn't always pretty, that we don't really want to deal with, but it's often a necessary evil, a necessary pain, a necessary exploration of excavation, let's just say. So Mercury, the day that I'm recording this video, it is September the 21st. Tomorrow, the 22nd, Mercury is going to square Pluto exact, okay? A square is a frictional aspect. Mercury is slow about to station retrograde. And we know that when a planet is moving slowly and about to station, it is at the height of its power. And you know, if something could go wrong or could be disruptive, it might just very well be under these tumultuous energy. So Mercury is about to go retrograde. It's going to come up into an exact square with Pluto on the 22nd, and we will stay under that energy because Mercury is moving so slowly, and so is Pluto. And then Pluto and Mercury are going to go into another exact square on October the 1st. And then on October 7th, Pluto is going to station direct. So again, we know what happens when planets are getting slower and slower and getting ready to station, right? They become heightened in their potency. Now, Pluto is a slow moving planet anyway, so it's already slow to begin with in what it uncovers and what it brings up to the surface. Mercury is all about communication and things being revealed to us. And let's not forget, the shadow side of Mercury is a trickster, cunning, manipulative energy. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, collectively we're seeing this play out. Obviously, there's been a lot of things emerging from the depths. There's been a lot of uncovering. We've had to kind of sort through the wheat from the chaff to figure out what is true for us and what is not, and that is going to continue. Let's not forget, Pluto is in Capricorn, and Capricorn is the sign that does deal with the governmental structures that we abide by, that we live under, and that we deal with and go through. And Mercury is the messenger, okay? And he is serving to bring things up to the surface. And as he contends with Pluto and as he squares off with Pluto, there could be some showdowns, there could be some locking of the heads, there could be just a lot of revealing circumstances that do come up under this energy. There may not be, but again, you know, there likely will be, and it can feel disruptive and confusing. So just know that this is that energy right now that we are under collectively. I did say I was going to focus more on the personal side, so I'm going to go back to that. I just wanted to prove my point about what this transit could feel like because of the aspects of Mercury and Pluto here. And remember, Pluto serves to regenerate us, to rejuvenate, to rebirth. That's what Pluto does. And if you want to be technical, the ancients often looked to Mercury as the planet of rebirth on a lot of levels, because when Mercury stations retrograde, he is an evening star. He stations as an evening star. And then as he moves through the retrograde, he gets up to his point of what we call cazimi, when he basically passes through the sun, and then he continues to rise. And when Mercury stations direct, he's actually a morning star. So the ancients believed this to be a great time of going inward, reevaluating, reassessing, really going deep, and then coming back up once Mercury stations direct. So Pluto is also the planet, not really a planet, but forget that. Pluto is also known for its deep, regenerative, rebirthing abilities, but it takes a lot to get to it because we have to go through all of that mud in order to get into the good stuff, or the rebirth, the renewal that this time speaks of. Okay, so personally, what this can feel like for you. We all have things that we know at a very deep level that make us uncomfortable. We've got behaviors ingrained in us since birth. Most of them are, our subconscious wiring. And like I always say, the subconscious always wants to win. And that is why it is so important to know your astrology, your personal astrology, because you cannot make something conscious until you're aware of it, until you know that this is what you're working with. Now, your chart is your chart. You come here with it. It's yours. It's your soul map. It's yours to work with, and it's yours to work through, and it's yours to navigate. But you always have your free will. And when you want to change something, you have the power to change it. So I do not look at anything as good nor bad. I look at it as it just is. It's energy, right? So keep that in mind as you're listening to this video and to how this Mercury retrograde cycle could potentially affect you. A huge theme of this retrograde is going to be looking at the shadow, bringing the shadow to the light. Now, this question comes up a lot with clients when we talk about the shadow and shadow work, and they'll ask, how do I do shadow work? What do you recommend? What is a way to go deeper into this? And so I'm going to plug two of my favorite books that I also put in my last video. And many of you did email me. I got several emails saying that you got both of these books, which I love to see. And I'm sorry if I don't reply to you. I do read all of my emails, but I can't always respond. But I did see that many of you got these books, so I'm really psyched about that you took my advice. Recommendation, I should say. Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark by Robert Augustus Masters. This is one of my favorites. I've read it numerous times, and I do the exercises myself, and you learn a lot about yourself. And you also learn a lot about your own growth when you think that you're not doing much, you're actually doing a lot. There's a lot of purging taking place. So highly recommend that one. And then this one is just a great one to read. Care of the Soul by Thomas More. Another really good one. Anyway, I had to plug those two books because I find them to be the best when you're dealing with, bringing up the unconscious material and actually working through it. And it's not about pretending things aren't there. It's not about trying to change who you truly are at the core level. It's just about understanding yourself on a deeper level, warts and all, right? Because we've all got the light and we've all got the shadow. That's just the way that it goes. So where is this energy? Where is this Mercury retrograde going to affect you personally? It's going to be in the house in your chart that contains Libra. We're going to be focusing on the house in your chart that contains Libra, just for frame of reference. So whatever house in your chart contains Libra is going to be the house that Mercury will be retrograding through. And this will be the areas of life in which you are invited to go into this purging, excavative energy. And a lot of it could simply just be on the soul level, psychological level. It doesn't have to be that deep. It definitely doesn't have to be negative by any means. It could be extremely cathartic and rewarding if you are able and ready to lean into it. And if you're not, it is likely that this is the area in which you will be presented with some Mercury retrograde shenanigans in this area of your life based on Libra in your chart. Bear in mind that we have been in the shadow of Mercury retrograde since the 13th of September. So it is quite possible that you've already received some information. It could be on a very small scale or on a larger scale, but you might have already received some information as to what this retrograde could potentially be bringing up for you, either internally, externally, or both. Remember, we are going to be going by the rising signs for this video. Aries rising. If you're an Aries rising, you are going to have this Mercury retrograde taking place in your 7th house. Now, this is doubly, I should say, important for you Aries rising, because if you are an Aries rising, you have what we would call a natural chart, meaning, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So Aries would be the first house. It rules the first house. So if you're an Aries rising, it's natural. Your house placements are natural, and natural rulers collectively are the natural rulers in your chart. So for you, the 7th house is ruled by Libra if you're an Aries rising, because the 7th house is opposite the first. So for you, the theme of opposition, the theme of relating, the theme of connecting, and the theme of balance within relationship is huge here for you, Aries rising. So this retrograde could be bringing things up for you, or maybe bringing things up for you in regards to the way you connect in your relationships and your contracts. Now, Aries and Libra deal with being selfish and being selfless, both on the positive side and on the shadow side. So you could have it being brought to your attention, or things could come up to be revealed to you from the unconscious that you are being too selfish in connections, one or more, or you could be being too selfless, and the desire to set that straight and create some kind of balance is going to be very present under this energy. But because it is Mercury retrograde squaring Pluto, it could also feel contentious and confusing. So keep that in mind and go easy on yourself. And I know Aries energy can be very impulsive and very hot-headed. And I often find that the Aries rising can be even more so than the sun sign. So you just want to watch that, because it could be like volcanic ash, it could be like that volcanic energy. So sit with it. If somebody brings this to your attention, don't snap off on them. Just really try to digest it before you respond, right? You don't want to react. You want to take your time and you want to respond. So that is for you, Aries rising. Taurus rising, this Mercury retrograde will highlight your 6th house. The 6th house is the house of Virgo. It's the house ruled by Virgo, and it is the house of healing and service and the way that we relate to others in our environment, in our work environment especially. And it's also got a lot to do with the physical healing of the body, also our nutrition, the way that we look after ourselves. Taurus is a sign of the physical body as well, and of the physical, it's also Earth. We're dealing with the Mercury retrograde in an Earth house for you, Taurus rising. So a lot could come up for you about the way you've been taking care of yourself or not taking care of yourself. If you have some kind of a hidden health issue, it may come up under this energy, but it may be coming up for you just so you can actually deal with it. It's likely something you've already known has been there, but maybe you haven't wanted to deal with it, or it may just be something small that could potentially get bigger if you don't deal with it. Now, it may not be health related at all. This could have to do with relating, because it's Mercury and connecting and communicating. It could be about relating to those in your daily environment, the people that you work with, and you could have some stuff coming up there that doesn't really feel nice. You can find out some information that could actually help to advance you. So it could really go either way anyway for you, Taurus rising, but just know that you will be likely having some reveals when it comes to the 6th house areas of life. Gemini rising, this Mercury retrograde is going to be taking place in your 5th house of creative projects and children and pleasure and romance and fun. So having Mercury retrograde through this house is going to feel a little annoying, for everybody, but more so here because Gemini is the sign ruled by Mercury. So if you're a Gemini rising, Mercury is your chart ruler. And so Gemini risings always have a lot of ideas. Gemini energy in general always has a lot of different ideas going on. And so when you're trying to funnel that energy into something creative, let's just say, you could feel stuck. Now, full disclosure, I'm a Gemini rising. I'm speaking from experience. I mentioned earlier how my computer crashed and it was really frustrating for me. Well, I was working on something creative and I lost it, completely. It's gone, can't get it back. And it was so deflating for me because I was writing, it was coming from my soul. And we all know how when we get in that groove, if you're not in that groove, once it passes, it's gone. And so I feel like it's gonna take a lot for me to get back to that. And so that's been upsetting for me. But in true Gemini rising fashion, I'm digressing. So I'm gonna go back to say that for Gemini rising, the areas in which you relate to the children in your life or about the children in your life, the way that you have fun, the way that you connect to having fun or allowing yourself to do it or not, or maybe you're doing it at others' expense, that would come up for you under this energy. Your creative work, this retrograde will bring things up for you around these areas, Gemini rising. Cancer rising, for you, this retrograde will take place in your 4th house. The 4th house is the house of Cancer. It's the house that Cancer rules over naturally. So you could feel just like you don't want to leave your house because you're paranoid of something going wrong, or there could just be this feeling of anxiety that just doesn't quite leave you under this Mercury retrograde energy for Cancer rising. So if you do feel that way, just take care of yourself. Know that it will pass. You may not feel that way, but at any rate, what this Mercury retrograde could bring up for you is areas around your security, what makes you feel safe in your surroundings, in your environment, with the people that you're surrounding yourself with your family, either of origin or your chosen family. So also, I recently had a client who had it revealed to her that she had 2 sisters that she knew nothing about from her birth father. And anyway, this energy could bring things up about family for you, Cancer rising. So you may find things out about your lineage that you didn't know. It may not affect you directly, but it would affect you because people you're related to. So a lot could come up for you around that. You could be doing a lot of things to your literal home. You may you may want to move under this energy. You may start to redo your home. It could be an excavation of that kind. But anyway, this Mercury retrograde will be in your 4th house, Cancer rising, and it will bring things up for you around the 4th house areas, which are the home, the family, the foundation, the lineage. Leo rising, for you, this Mercury retrograde will take place in your 3rd house. The 3rd house is the house of communication. It is the house ruled by Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. So remember, Mercury retrograde, this is its natural home here for Leo rising right now. So you may feel the Mercury retrograde shenanigans. Remember, it doesn't mean definitely, but you may feel this area more than most when it comes to short distance travel. If you're going on a car trip, I highly recommend that you print out an extra itinerary and leave a little wiggle room in case of delays or traffic or things of that nature, because the 3rd house is all about short distance travel, car trips, communication, especially with our siblings or those that are like siblings to us, cousins, neighbors, people we see on the day-to-day. So again, things could come up, communication situations, relating situations could come up under this energy around those people or those areas in your life for Leo rising. And like Aries, also a fire sign, Leo's a fire sign, so you tend to be direct in your expression and your emotion for the most part. And well, Leo rising sometimes isn't as much so as Leo sun, but the desire to do so will be there. And because this retrograde's in your 3rd house of communication, you will really be feeling like you want to express yourself and exactly how it is that you're feeling. And just remember, like we said for Aries rising with the fire signs, respond and don't react. Take your time and all should be well. Virgo rising, this Mercury retrograde will take place in your 2nd house. The 2nd house is the house ruled by Taurus. It is the house of our resources, our money. It is also the house of our self-worth and what we value. And so Virgo, with this Mercury retrograde taking place in your 2nd house, I feel like a lot of this is going to center around financial matters for you, Virgo rising, and just the way you connect to your finances and how they make you feel and what you own and what you have. So a lot could be coming up for you around, again, like what it is that you desire to still achieve or what you feel like you have not achieved. So go easy on yourself, because Virgo rising can definitely get into their heads a lot and overthink and be very critical of themselves. Also critical of others at times, but you're very critical of yourself also. And so this is definitely a retrograde where you're going to be kind of beating yourself up. So just be mindful of that and just pay attention to that. When issues of self-worth invariably come up for you under this energy, Virgo rising, just go into it, lean into it, maybe do some shadow work around it. It's probably not as bad as you think. It's really just that you're harder on yourself than anyone. So this retrograde can feel for you like, oh my gosh, I haven't done enough, or oh my gosh, there's still so much to do. So definitely, Mercury is also your ruling planet, Virgo rising. So definitely take some time, take a mental break, calm down your nervous system, and do what you can to not spin out. Libra rising, this Mercury retrograde will take place in your 1st house, which is the house of self. It's the Aries house opposite your 7th house. So for you, Libra rising, there's going to be a lot coming up to the surface about the balance and power dynamics within all of your relationships and connections. Personal, professional, romantic, doesn't matter. You're going to have a lot coming up to the surface for you to look at about potentially where you've been shortchanged or feel that you've been shortchanged in your relationships, or where you may be the one doing the shortchanging. So these situations will likely come up for scrutiny under this energy for the Libra rising folks. And also, let's not forget that, Mercury is in Libra right now. And so weighing out the options and being more direct with your truth, because the shadow side of Libra is passive aggressive behavior. So you may be really feeling upset about something or being upset with someone in your life, but instead of just going directly to them and saying it, you'll go to a roundabout, or you'll go through a roundabout way, almost like wanting them to come to it on their own. And remember, we are under a Mercury retrograde and a lot of Pluto energy. So the likelihood of that happening may not be so good. So just keep that in mind, just to watch that potential to be passive aggressive in your connections, and rather try to be more direct, but not aggressive direct. Scorpio rising, this Mercury retrograde will take place through your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is the last house of the chart. It is the house of our real unconscious psychological material. It is a water house, so a lot can be coming up from the shadow under this energy. And Scorpio is a sign that doesn't necessarily shy away from the shadow. You're used to that energy, so it might not feel totally uncomfortable for you, but this Mercury retrograde is in an air sign, and this is going to be a very watery Mercury retrograde for you. And what could come up for you under this energy is because the 12th house is also the house of our sorrows. It is the house of potential undoing. It can be the house of hidden enemies. So you might find that you think someone or something is working for you, and then something may come up for you. And it could even be through the dream state or psychic energy, because the 12th house, that's what it is, right? So it could be that things are revealed to you, Mercury the messenger, revealing that something or someone you thought was for you may actually be working against you, or vice versa. It could be on the positive side that someone you thought was against you or not going to work for you is actually now, on your side. But again, with the 12th house being of hidden enemies, I'm going to kind of err on the side of it likely will be something that you thought was positive and now you're finding out may not be working out the best for you. However, this could be a very introspective Mercury retrograde for Scorpio risings as well, in which you're able to come to some sort of resolution in your mind and in your heart and in your soul about something that you long ago since have buried. Sagittarius rising, this Mercury retrograde will take place in your 11th house. The 11th house is the house that's ruled by Aquarius, and it is the house of groups, associations, and friendships. So Mercury retrograding through this house for you, Sagittarius rising, could potentially bring issues to the forefront in how you relate to the group, the way that you express yourself with others, or the way that you don't express yourself. You could get some pushback or some feedback that could limit you in some way or limit your expression, or show you how this could be happening and how to correct it. Because Sagittarius rising, one of the lessons of a Sagittarius rising is to be able to be a free spirit and express yourself and own your truth at all costs. And you could come up under this energy, you could come up against, it could be with a friend or a group of friends or a group that you're involved in. It could even be online, because the 11th house is internet, online. So there could be some stuff that comes up for you about the way you relate and express yourself with Mercury retrograding through this house. Now, word of caution, because the 11th house is the Aquarius house, it's an air house. A lot could come up here for you, Sagittarius rising, in regards to technology and the way you use it and the way you communicate through it. So you may really want to pay extra close attention, just a little warning, a little guidance, a little warning, just to avoid any mishaps that could happen potentially through an internet blunder. So the more you pay attention to it and the more you're aware of it, the less likely it is to happen. You could also experience this as having an issue or a bump up with a friend. And this could be something where a situation comes up where they bring it to your attention. They could question your beliefs, because Sagittarius is also the sign of our belief systems. So something positive could come out of this for you too, in the sense that you could expand your own belief system, you can expand your own horizons, you can get a perspective, gain a new perspective that you didn't ever think you'd possibly have, that could come in through a bump up with a friend or a situation or an argument, or them bringing something to your attention, or you could potentially be the one to actually expand their knowledge or have them express their truth or bring them to a different, higher level of awareness. So this has the potential to be very positive for friendships as well. Capricorn rising, this Mercury retrograde will take place in your 10th house. The 10th house is the house ruled by Capricorn. The 10th house is also the house that governs our public persona, our reputation, our public image, our place in the world. It is the legacy that we wish to leave behind. It is our social status. So with Mercury retrograding through this house, let's also remember that Pluto is currently in Capricorn, and Pluto is going to be squaring Mercury pretty much throughout this whole retrograde. That is the energy we are under. So for Cap rising, you may find power dynamics, issues of control, the way that you are able to present yourself to the world. You could have an issue come up with a boss or an authority figure, or you yourself could be that authority figure who has an issue with somebody underneath you. Could also be some sort of a hit to your reputation or public image. Don't panic. If you feel that you've been doing something that could potentially be exposed, you may want to do some work to have it come out naturally so that it is not as detrimental as if it comes out from under the trenches, because under this energy, things like that do get revealed. Just saying, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, but if you are, or you may be the one to bring it to others' attention about somebody else's wrongdoings. But either way, with Mercury retrograding through this 10th house, remember, it's a very public house. Doesn't mean that whatever happens for you is going to be very public. It could be very private and personal, but it is a house of, it's a visible house. So again, this could also just be status related. So keep that in mind, that this one could be bringing up some deep stuff for you, Capricorn rising. Aquarius rising, this Mercury will be retrograding through your 9th house. The 9th house is the house ruled by Sagittarius. It is a very expansive house. It is the house of religion, philosophy, politics, long distance travel. It's our belief system. Now, with Mercury retrograding through this house, you could be challenged on your belief system. You could be the one challenging others on their belief systems. You could be publicly doing this, and there could be some pushback on either side. So for Aquarius rising, let's remember, Aquarius is the sign of the humanitarian. You want everyone to have their rights. You want everybody to be free to be who they truly are, and you expect the same from others. And this Mercury retrograde is in the 9th house of Sagittarius, which is a house that's equally as concerned with expansion and being able to have your own mindset and your own belief system and your own philosophies. So this retrograde could be a little contentious for you, Aquarius rising. And I love my Aquarians, but there's on the shadow side of Aquarian energy, and it might not even be a shadow trait, but a trait of Aquarians can be that they always have to be right. And so they will go to the depths of whatever they need to do to prove their point. And so you may find yourself under this retrograde really hammering your point home to the point that it rubs others the wrong way, or somebody could be doing that to you and you could just, flip out about it. So again, a little bit more patience will go a long way under this transit, but do know that things will be coming up. You will have some communications you may be challenged about what you believe in or what you've previously believed in. That's for our Aquarius rising. Pisces rising, this Mercury retrograde will take place in your 8th house. The 8th house is the house of Scorpio. It is a psychological water house. Pisces rising, you are also a water rising sign. So again, this could feel like a very emotionally draining Mercury retrograde cycle for you, just being honest. So you may find yourself, crying more than normal, feeling extra sensitized to everyone and everything around you, hypersensitive to criticism. So remember, really, again, if someone comes to you with a question, comment, or concern, you're going to be more than likely to take that extra personal right now, Pisces rising. So you want to be sure to sit with it, because it may not be intended to hurt your feelings, but under this Mercury retrograde, you may feel like every little thing is just extra sensitive, extra deep, extra personal, and you may cry a lot. I'm not gonna lie, Pisces energy, very, very sensitive. So you will be feeling that a lot under this energy, and it may feel very confusing for you as well. So know that under 8th house matters, right? The 8th house rules sex, it rules death, it rules taxes, it rules other people's money and resources, it rules inheritances, it rules real estate. It rules things that are taboo that we don't openly discuss with others. So Venus is also in Scorpio. So when it comes to relationships and connections, that stuff is kind of coming up anyway. So remember, Pisces, because you are such an impressionable water sign, to understand that you may not be perceiving it 100% accurately. It may not be personal, or you may be the one that is just, maybe you're not sensitive at all. And maybe you're just, projecting it onto others. I don't really know how that's going to go for you. You'll know as you're going through this retrograde cycle how it feels, but that's the key, feels. This is going to be a very sensitive feeling Mercury retrograde transit for you, Pisces rising. I don't think you'll be able to avoid it unless you do the Pisces swim away or put your head in the sand, which, hey, if that's how you deal with it, that's whatever you have to do. But more so than ever, the shadow work probably pertains to Pisces rising. I think all in all, it could be a very creative transit for you if you funnel all of that energy into creative work, into writing, something that makes you feel good. You may not want to be around too many people under this transit. There you have it. That is Mercury retrograde through all 12 signs, going by your rising sign. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. Let's remember, he delivers information and communication from all of the realms. He goes from the subconscious to the superconscious to the conscious to bring forth information to us that might not likely be so readily accessible. This is a very positive side to Mercury retrograde. Remember, Mercury is represented by Hermes, the messenger of the gods, and he was able to travel through the dimensions by his winged sandals. This is the mythology of Hermes, Mercury, the messenger of the gods. So again, under this energy, lots can be revealed, lots of messages, information, communications coming through. Be extra attentive, pay attention to yourself, little extra wiggle room when it comes to the Mercury areas, travel, communication, and technology. Just a little more vigilance and awareness will go a really long way. I really hope that this has helped you. Please be sure to subscribe if you enjoy this content and would like more videos like this. And also, I am Lisa Salvatore of lisasalvatore.com. You can find me right here and talk to you soon. Bye.